Monday, June 1st, 2020 to order. Charlie, will you lead us with the Pledge of Allegiance, please? And there's the flag for everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I pledge allegiance
to the flag
Flag
of the United
of the United
States,
States of
of
America,
America and to the
and
republic
for
for
which
which
it stands,
one nation
one nation,
under God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty and
with
justice for all.
Okay, public forum. Number 2. Anyone wishing to address the board in public forum? Jeff. Good morning. You're muted, Jeff. Can you unmute? Or Tracy?
I got it. Thank you. Good morning, Jeff Hocking. I'd like to comment on item number 6. I have been told that Attorney Barrett offered an opinion last week that tabling the COLA matter would not be considered a vote within the 90-day timeline. I just want to be sure that the board did receive a letter late last week from the Guilford Police Union attorney. Said letter in part states their willingness to waive the 90-day timeline so that the matter may be postponed as previously requested. If you have not received the letter, I would be glad to read it into the record. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Jeff, please read it into the record for us.
Okay. It's dated May 29th, 2020, addressed to Matt Hoey, First Selectman, regarding 2020 proposed adjustment for police retirement plan. Dear First Selectman Hoey, the Guilford Police Union Local 442 has become aware that the police retirees are requesting postponement of the consideration of this year's proposed adjustment due to the COVID-19 pandemic. As you are aware, the collective bargaining agreement between the parties specifies that the Board of Selectmen shall vote on any such proposed adjustment within 90 days from the date of its receipt of the report from the actuary. Please consider this correspondence notice that the police union is willing to waive this time requirement consistent with the request from the retirees. Sincerely, Kelly Rommel, State Staff Attorney Representative.
Thank you, Jeff. Anyone else wishing to address the board in public forum? Hearing none, let's move on to item 3, and that's to approve minutes. 3.1 would be the May 15th, 2020 special meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Good. Any comments, questions, changes, additions, deletions, etc.? For those who may not have the information directly in front of them, this was the special meeting on moving the bond question to the Board of Finance for Baldwin Middle School. Nothing further? Call the question. All in favor, Selectman Federici? You're muted, Lou. Okay, Selectman Haverda?
Aye.
Selectwoman Renner?
Aye.
Selectwoman Ruoff?
Aye.
Item 3.2, the May 18th, 2020 regular meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
And a second?
Second, Charles.
Thank you, Charles. Any comments, questions, changes?
So I had just a small typo in 6.1 regarding the Windows Server and license. Just a typo on the name. I think it's advanced, second line, advanced office systems.
Okay. It is. Good. Anything else? Hearing none, call the question. Selectman Federici?
Aye.
Selectman Haverda?
Aye.
Selectwoman Renner?
Aye.
Selectwoman Ruoff?
Aye.
Selectman Hoy is also an aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Item 4, Deputy Police Chief Butch Hyatt. 4.1, and that is to consider and take possible action on the purchase of a police vehicle from Jengers Ford off of the state contract. Butch, floor is all yours.
All right, thank you. As you know, as part of our maintaining our fleet, we replace the vehicles. Our budget every year for capital has vehicles in there, either marked or unmarked. This would be an unmarked vehicle. It is to replace the vehicle that Chief Hutchinson was driving. It's over 4 years old, over 100,000 miles. And it would, that vehicle we would keep in our fleet, and we would push out a much older vehicle that we have, another Expedition, which would become available to the town. I'm sure that could be used to replace another vehicle in town. It's still in great shape. Public Works does all the maintenance on that and keeps it in great shape for us.
Great.
So this vehicle is, again, we looked at some of the problem with vehicles for us now, as you can imagine, with the COVID issue going on, is availability of vehicles and how soon we can get them. There's a lot of those are backed up, as we know, through our vendors for vehicles that we ordered for out of the last budget. We're still waiting on. So this would move this vehicle from the 2021 capital into this year's, which we would cover and purchase this vehicle. And this is not a patrol vehicle. Again, it is a regular vehicle there would be some lights added to it for response. But it would be to replace the chief's vehicle.
Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none. Is there a motion to approve the purchase of the 2024 Explorer XLT in the amount of $35,169?
I will do it, and I did think of a question. Is the vehicle that we're going to eliminate, I think Butch said that this car is going to go into the town fleet, or the car that's being replaced is going to go into the town fleet. Is the car from the town fleet being eliminated or from the police fleet?
Charlie, we haven't identified which one we're going to be replacing on the town side. We have a number of very older vehicles. One in particular, I think, needs to be retired, is that orange one that they use down at Public Works for administrative purposes. But I think Butch mentioned that the chief's car was going to get moved down into police department's use. And then the police department had one other vehicle that they were going to be making available to the town side.
Oh, okay. All right. No problem.
And that's correct.
Yep, I still move it, so it's no problem.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call the question. Selectman Federici,
Aye.
Selectman Haverda,
Aye.
Selectwoman Renner,
Aye.
Selectwoman Ruoff,
Aye.
Selectman Hoy is also an aye. Motion carries. Butch, while we have you here, there was a late addition to the agenda, what hasn't actually made it on the agenda at this point. So I'm going to propose that we put 4.2, we add 4.2 to the agenda. And this is related to bids for generator redundancy outlet. So I'm putting that in the form of a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Call the question. Selectman Federici,
Aye. Aye.
Selectman Haverda,
I'm an aye. This is just the connection. It's not a generator, right? It just makes it.
well, let's let Butch talk about it after we approve it
Okay.
to the agenda.
All right.
This is just adding it to the agenda. So
Aye.
Selectman Renner,
Aye.
Selectwoman Ruoff,
Aye.
Selectman Hoy is also an aye. Motion carries. Butch, you want to talk a little bit about this?
Absolutely. So we indicated that, and you are correct, that this is a connection for a generator. It's wiring in a redundant connection to our current generator. This is, I put in the file of, we don't know what we don't know until we know it. And we had an issue with our generator a number of months ago where we had a component on it fail during a test. We had to get that component in here. It took a period of time to get the component here. During that time, we did not have a generator. I think we might have spoken about this at one of the meetings. We had to bring in an electrician to wire in a temporary plug so that if the building went down during a windstorm, an accident, whatever, our battery backups would cover it for a short period of time, but without the generator, could create a catastrophic situation here. So we had a temporary wire put in there so that we could plug into the portable generator that the fire department has, and that's a large generator that's actually on a trailer. So it was a scramble to get that hooked up. We said, let's not let that happen again, because if we have a catastrophic failure of that generator during a time that we need it, we want to be able to have the shortest turnaround to get back on generator service. Had some conversations with the fire department as well, and thought that the best practice would be to get a permanent redundancy wired into our generator in the event that happens. And what you see there is the cost for wiring that component into the current system, attaching it to our generator with a switch. Switch is kind of they call it a switch, but it's a much bigger item than what you might think. And that switch then goes to a plug, which is mounted outside the building. So if we have a catastrophic failure, we roll up the portable generator. The plug matches the plug on the generator. We plug it in, and we're back in business.
Excellent. Any other questions of Butch? Great explanation, Butch. Very detailed. Thank you. Anybody have any other questions?
No, I'll move it.
And a second?
Second.
Call the question. Selectman Federici.
Aye.
Selectman Haverda.
Aye.
Selectwoman Renner.
Aye.
Selectwoman Ruoff.
Aye.
Selectman Hoy is also an aye. Motion carries. Butch, thank you very much.
Should we include the dollar value in that motion? I don't know.
Yeah, sure. It was $17,482.60.
Okay.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you, Butch.
If you don't have any
Stay
questions,
safe, Butch.
I have to move to. We got some other meetings in regards to what's going on regionally here. So, if you don't mind, I'm going to sign off.
Absolutely. Thanks, Butch.
All right, thank you.
Item 5, Environmental Planner Kevin McGee, 5.1. In accordance with Section 272-41B, 1F of the Planning and Zoning Subdivision, the Board of Selectmen review request of approximately 53 acres of open space to be dedicated to the town of Guilford as part of the Long Hill Estates subdivision, as shown on the property survey and record subdivision map, residential open space subdivision, Long Hill Estates East, prepared for Vigliati Construction Company, prepared by Thomas A. Stevens and Associate, Inc., dated April 30th, 2019, and last revised March 24th, 2020. And the Board of Selectmen to recommend to the Planning and Zoning Commission the town accept the open space contingent on the approval of a town meeting. Kevin, floor is all yours.
Good morning. You summarized that there. I'll add a little bit more to your summary, and I'll show, try to show on a map here what we're looking at here. So as you indicate, as part of the subdivision approval process, the applicant has received a special permit from the Planning and Zoning Commission to allow the filing of an open space subdivision. One of the conditions of the special permit is the dedicated open space be noted as Class A open space, define the town of Guilford plan for municipal needs as undeveloped and essential for preservation of natural resources and rural characteristics of the community, and provide a range of passive recreational activities. The application was received favorably by the Conservation Commission, Land Acquisition Commission, and the Inland Wetlands Commission. I'm in favor of the Board of Selectmen recommending to the Planning and Zoning Commission that the town is interested in accepting the dedicated open space on approval of the town meeting. The proposed 53.2 acres of dedicated open space protects important natural resources of the on-site inland wetlands, vernal pools, ponds, steep slopes, West River. The dedicated open space will extend open space from along the West River from Bittner Park to potential through the subdivision and potentially connecting to a piece north of us, which is currently undeveloped. Sections of the proposed proposed open space have informal trails already connecting to Bittner in the Baldwin's trail system. In addition, plans for the subdivision show a proposed path from the cul-de-sac on the new subdivision down to the Baldwin School. Recreational activities that could utilize this open space consist of hiking, mountain biking, horseback riding, and fishing, which is popular along that West River section there. I'm not sure how it's going to show up, but I'll see if you can see the map here.
Terrific, thanks.
All the area with this, I guess, pinkish reddish hatching was the open space. So there's an open space section in the middle of the subdivision. That's primarily large area wetlands. However, the eastern section of the property, which has steep slopes, it's hard for you to see the contours on this plan, slopes fairly steeply down to the West River, which is the eastern side of the property here. And like I said, it's indicated about a total of roughly 53 acres of open space that the town will receive from this dedication for the open space for the subdivision.
Kevin, thank you. Kevin, how many acres is the, what is it, 31 unit subdivision? How many acres does that consist of?
So the total subdivision is about 70 acres. So the subdivision itself is probably only taking on about 20-ish acres.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, I do, Kevin. Oh, sorry, did somebody else have something?
Sure.
Go ahead, Lou.
Thanks. So I gather from reviewing this that this has already been through, it's being reviewed by planning and zoning. It appears that it's going to happen. I mean, is there any indication that it's not going to happen?
I really hear no indication of not happening. There's some planning issues and engineering issues of a design that needs to be cleaned up on the plans, but overall, it's been getting positive reviews for, and not really much, or if any, neighborhood objections there.
Okay. So I take it though, since it's not finally and fully approved, this action that we're taking is authorizing this transfer to happen if in fact it's approved by planning and zoning, right? This is a bit conditional.
Conditional, we'll be back to you once the whole subdivision gets approved, and then, because we'll have to request from the Board of Selectmen to schedule a town meeting for the final vote of the project, or for acceptance of the open space.
All right, good. I had a couple of other questions, and Father, assuming all that, thank you.
Yep.
So this is a transfer to the town in fee.
Correct.
Period. With the town would then own this open space. It's not like we have an easement or something, environmental easement or anything. The town owns the space.
Yeah, the town will have full ownership of that space.
Okay. And is there any chance that there's any problems with this existing property? I mean, any environmental issues? Do we go through that exercise? I mean, I know it's along the river, but I mean, did somebody have a, some sort of challenging use there at some point back in the 20s or 30s or 40s?
The property was a former tree farm. I've actually wandered a good portion of the property for inland wetlands, reviewing the boundary and stuff there, and there's nothing jumping out to me of any really farm dumps or anything else like that that I've seen on the property there, which would raise a little bit of a flag.
Pam's good.
Yeah. Could I just ask you, Kevin, what's the analysis about when the town is going to acquire fee title versus a conservation easement? I know in a lot of other ones we do conservation easements.
Open space subdivisions is basically dedication of the land to the town. Regular subdivisions where they have to give up to 10%. We've been actually trying to trend away from conservation easements and move towards fee and lieu, and that's part of the upgrades to the planning and zoning regulations for subdivision. But sometimes it is just what's on the property and what needs to be protected there. But like I said, open space subdivisions are preferable or dedications because it's larger pieces of land being dedicated. So I'd rather have those in fee, where because it's up over 50% of the property, it's hard to be open space when you get these open space subdivisions.
And the trend away that you're discussing, you're saying there's a trend away from conservation easements. Is there some kind of explanation of why?
You start getting these small little areas of really not good pieces of land. So the thought is that you get the value for the easement area, and then the town can purchase a larger chunk of more desirable protected land with that fee collected.
Anything else, Pam?
No, that's it, I guess. Thank you.
Kevin, can you just spend a second on Class A open space versus other classes? What exactly are we entitled to or not, or restricted by labeling it Class A?
Sure. Class A was actually a condition placed on as part of the special permit for this application, as from recommendations from, I believe, Inland Wetlands Commission, which is basically passive recreation. Class B is your active recreation, such as Bittner Parks, where you have playing fields, more formal recreational activities there. And then our Class C is our more developed properties, schools, municipal buildings, parking lots, and those type of facilities.
Okay, with that in mind, are there any specific restrictions of future use of this property, i.e. river crossings or anything like that?
For this piece here,
Yes.
this piece would be, if it, with the special permit of Class A, you wouldn't be able to put roads or anything on this lower, within the conservation, within the open space area.
Okay, so this parcel, 53 acres, would never be able to have any roads or anything other than passive recreation.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Charlie, I think I know where you're going with this. Kevin, so is any portion of this property, we're getting some feedback here.
Sorry, that's probably me.
Okay. Would this property have lent itself to any type of connection to Bittner for that elusive east-west connection between 77 and Long Hill?
No, because your connection on 77 is further south than this piece of property is.
Okay.
So your connection is through the Baldwin property.
Well, that's what you're thinking now, but my point is, isn't this piece of property opposite Bittner?
No, this piece of property is further up the road from Bittner. So you go
Okay.
just north of Baldwin School.
Yeah, I know where Smith's Farm is. I'm trying to think of
Especially if
where.
they don't have the P&Z approval yet.
What was that? I get some feedback here.
I know where the Smith's Farm is on Long Hill. I'm just trying to place in my mind where it comes out on 77.
I'll have to show you guys a map again of the town, and kind of draw a line and sometimes the board here where that proposed road was.
Right. This 53 acres is not opposite Bittner on the river.
No, it's further north. Bittner is further south,
Okay. All right.
way south.
All right. Do we have a motion on the floor for this?
Not yet.
Want me to move it? Are we at that point, or we got more questions?
Yeah, let me
Somebody's
ask
got two devices open.
Something isn't right with the sounder.
Okay.
Does somebody
I think
have
Pam's
multiple
muted now, so it should be
devices
all right.
open?
Pam's muted. Pam's muted. Thank you.
All right, that answers.
All right. So the question I have is, if there is a question related to A versus B, do we want to table this until we get some kind of clarification? Can we accept it as Class B, or is that a condition of inland wetlands and P&Z that it has to be Class A, Kevin?
It's a condition of, it's a recommendation of wetlands, but it's a condition of planning and zoning, which is on their special permit filed in the land records.
Okay. All right. Then I have no problem moving it. So Charlie, you made the motion?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll
Second.
second.
Good. Call the question. Selectman Federici,
Aye.
Selectman Haverda,
Aye.
Selectwoman Renner,
Aye.
Selectwoman Ruoff,
Aye.
Selectman Hoy is also an aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Kevin. 5.2, discuss and take possible action on the award of bid number 9-1920, haying and harvesting crops on a portion of the Northern Heights Town property. Kevin?
So we solicited bids for this property. We received only one, which is from 3B Ranch LLC, for the 5-year license that we provide for the farmers using the property up there. They're going to be haying 35 acres of the northern space open space. This is a property that the Hamlins had, but could not continue maintaining. Their proposal is for the first and second years, since the property has not been taken care of for roughly 2 years. It's going to take some effort for them to get it back into shape. There's no fee being collected by the town. And then after that, for the remaining years would be $50 an acre. $50, the average, I understand the average acreage for this type of operation is between $50 and $75 an acre for haying operations. We've, quite a few years ago, had basically farmers kind of competing for the land to drew up the pricing. Right now there seems to be less competition for the land, so the pricing's gone down. This has been reviewed by the Agricultural Commission, and which recommends that they move forward with the land. 3B Ranch was the operator of the property prior to Hamlin's taking it over in 2016. We had no problem with them, with their haying operations at the time.
Kevin, are there any restrictions as far as environmental issues or pesticides or anything like that? Because you said they got to get the land back up to speed. Are there restrictions or outlines of how they do that?
They are allowed to use herbicides and stuff. They're required to provide us with copies of any documentation, MSDs or whatever they are utilizing there. But a lot of it's more of the not really invasive plants or brushy plants popping up. A lot of it's more of the dead grasses choking out areas, which the area's been thinned out. So it's a matter of just getting the thickness of the grasses growing back.
So say they gave us a list of chemicals that they use. Who reviews them? Is that something that you were in charge of? Or?
Yeah, it gets sent to me, and basically if somebody asks about it, I have the listings available. They're required to follow all required DEP requirements for use of the chemicals.
Oh, okay. So there are some guidelines for you as far, I mean, I don't want any Roundup up there.
Oh,
There are guidelines for you follow from the DEP or something like that?
Right, yep, there's labeled restrictions for the different chemicals and stuff.
Okay. All right, do we
Like I
need a
said,
motion?
most of the time they're not really using much. There's a lot of times it's just mostly getting the correct, the fertilization to get the pH of the soil correct.
Yeah, I'm sure they don't want
vigorous
to use
growth.
them any more than we want them to. I just want to be able to control it if it becomes a problem. Do we need a
Right.
motion at this point?
Yes, we do.
I'll move it.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Selectman Federici,
aye.
Selectman Haverda,
Aye.
Selectwoman Renner,
Aye.
Selectwoman Ruoff,
Aye.
Selectman Hoy is also an aye. Kevin, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Item 6. Director of Human Resources, Mitch Goldblatt, 6.1 is to remove from table and take possible action on recommendation from the Pension Committee regarding a cost of living adjustment for current pensioners. Obviously, we had some input at public forum at the start of the meeting, and Jeff Hocking was correct. Town council was advised that we do have to do an up or down vote on it to satisfy the terms of the agreement. Yes, the union has in fact offered to waive that. So at this point, I would suggest that prior to going back to council, we could vote no and give ourselves the option to take it off the table at any point that we want to. We are not prohibited from doing that. We can revisit it at any point. The agreement, as I understand it, only obligates us to do it every 2 years. Does not mean that we could not do it at a point in the future when we felt it was appropriate to take another look at it. So, comments or questions?
Yeah, I've been thinking about it, and given what our town council is saying, if we have to vote now, and there's nothing preventing us from unilaterally visiting again, as you say, Matt, I can't imagine. Well, I guess I can. There could be the likely people who would object to that would be external to the negotiation and the contract, right? It'd be people who would be on the outside saying you should not be spending money in a year when you don't have to spend it, which is what we'd be doing right now. But we're facing that same problem 6 months, 9 months, a year from now, and certainly 2 years from now in any event. So I don't have a problem with a no vote right now, and we'll deal with this issue of whether we can pick it up down the line.
Good.
I'm
Others?
sorry. What? I'm a little bit confused. A no vote regarding what? I'm sorry.
No, a no vote, as I understand, given the current economic circumstances, I mean, the timing of this could not possibly be worse. And
Okay. So a no vote would be, we would not be granting a cost of living raise today.
right, recognizing would not be granting a cost of living increase
And
today.
when you say picking it up, we wouldn't pick it up in 2 years again?
Well, at a minimum, we'd pick it up in 2 years. But what I'm hearing is with the union saying they would waive the requirement that we can't have an interim evaluation. We could do it again at some future date,
But we don't have to.
but we don't have.
The only obligation is what's in the contract, Sandy. The only obligation is the 2-year period that's called out in the collective bargaining agreement.
So if we take a vote today, whether it's yes or no, we are theoretically done for 2 years unless we choose to bring it up again. Is that what we're saying?
Yes. Anyone else? Sue, Charlie?
Yeah, it's disappointing that we can't decide to bring it up again in a few months, but I understand. I mean, it is what it is legally. If we need to do a yes or no vote today, I can't imagine voting to approve it today under the current circumstances. And as Mr. Hocking has stated on behalf of the police retirees, I think that's understood.
Good, yeah.
So unfortunately, it's unfortunate looking back over the past 10 years when there have been a lot of times when we weren't in the current circumstances. It's too bad it wasn't addressed, but.
Good. All right.
Yeah, I agree with you. Do we have a motion on the table?
No, that we need a motion to remove it from the table. Is there a motion?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
And a second.
Second.
Call the question. Selectman Federici.
Aye.
Selectman Haverda.
Aye.
Selectwoman Renner.
Aye.
Selectwoman Ruoff.
Was there a question of me recusing
No,
myself?
we're taking it
Oh, I'm
off.
sorry. I apologize. Aye.
Selectman Hoy is also an aye. So, all right. The motion itself. The motion would be to approve a cost of living adjustment for the police department at this time. Is there a second?
No, the motion would be not to approve cost of living.
No, the action we were taking was to approve a cost of living adjustment.
So the contract language is that we have to, it automatically comes up for our approval,
Mhm.
and
Yes,
then we say no if we're not interested.
that's my understanding.
Or no one makes a motion, right? And if nobody makes a motion to do
Well,
it, then is that? how it is?
No,
No,
that's
Or is
why
that-
we're trying to eliminate that gray area.
Okay,
So
No,
we'll
they-
make the motion, and if we don't want to grant it at this point, we vote no.
okay.
No.
The contract language states the Board of Selectmen shall vote on any such proposed adjustment within 90 days from the date of its receipt for the report from the actuary. So just a vote. I mean, I don't know if the vote has to be in the positive or negative, but there should be a vote.
right, but Charlie just clarified that a vote in the negative is voting no. We are voting not to approve a cost of living
All
adjustment.
right, I'll make the motion.
A second?
Aye.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'll second it. Sorry, so confusing.
All right, call the
We have a
question.
lot of negatives on the pending. There's a motion before us to say whether we approve the proposed cost of living increase. So unfortunately, at this moment, if we don't approve of that motion at the moment, it's a no vote. I just want to understand what I'm saying. Okay.
Yep.
I mean, because I'm sympathetic to Sue's comments too, that it's been 10 years. You know, every year it's something different. Every year there's enormous pressure to keep
May I
keep
make
numbers
a
down.
comment? May I make
Yeah.
a comment about the 10
Sure.
years? Hasn't it been reviewed since the last cost of living was granted in 2008? But
Yeah,
every 2 years, it does get reviewed by the pension committee and their consultants. Isn't that correct? So it isn't like,
That is correct, and it's also been voted on every 2 years by the Board of Selectmen.
right, so it isn't like no action has been taken in 10 years, but no cost of living has been
No,
granted.
I understand, but that's,
Yeah.
listen, and there's different pools of people in those pension groups, okay? There's some people for whom, to put it plainly, it's not necessarily an enormous crisis, but there's some other people, I'm sure, that this is a significant portion of their retirement income, and 10 years is a long time to be frozen if that's part of what they sort of negotiated with. So I am sympathetic to the problem, and I would like to be able to visit it should good economic times return. And, you know, it would feel better to be able to do that. But at the moment, given everything that's going on, I just can't see that this is that time.
What's
Sorry.
your vote, Lou?
So my
Yeah.
vote is no to the increase, right? Thanks, Charlie. Sometimes a kick in the ribs is needed.
Selectman Haverda,
No.
Selectwoman Renner,
No,
Selectwoman Ruoff.
Okay, so I just wanted to bring up, I did bring it up at the last meeting that I do receive a pension, not from the police union, but I am receiving a pension from the town. So if it's more appropriate for me to recuse myself, I will. If not, I would be
You
voting no.
got to just make your own decision on that.
Yeah,
but the motion was specifically for police, if that helps.
Okay, no.
Selectman Hoy is also a no. But the point being that we've discussed and all of us agreed that at an appropriate point, we can take this off the table outside of the required 2-year window.
No, it's off the table now. It's not on the table. It would have to start all over again.
That's right. We'd have to unilaterally say, we're going to visit this on
Exactly.
our own initiative, despite
Right.
the contract language requiring us to do so in 2 years. We're going to find a moment in an interim time to address it again. That's what we'd have. to-
Yep, okay.
Thanks.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Mitch. Item 7, consider and take possible action on a resolution calling on the state to expand voting options. I have included this I've been in contact with several folks, including our registrar of voters, who are supportive of the governor's efforts to protect voters by not requiring everyone to do in-voting. So this is basically relaxing the absentee voting laws. There are actually 2 motions here today. The first is to adopt the changes to absentee voting procedures made by Governor Ned Lamont in Executive Order 7QQ for all future elections, and appropriating sufficient funds to municipalities to defray the significant increased cost of holding elections during the pandemic. So that was the first. The second of which that the Board of Selectmen would call on a General Assembly to convene in special session for the purposes of adopting a joint resolution to amend the state constitution to permanently allow any elector to vote by absentee ballot for any reason and submit such joint resolution to the popular vote for ratification in the November election. So I will put the first one, which is the first one up as a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, comments, questions, etc.
Trying to understand what you mean by first and second. Are you talking about the two, it's a resolution, and I see there's section 1 and section
Right.
2. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
So we can modify this resolution to leave it as it is, or to approve one or the other, or both, obviously.
I mean, so we're not really approving anything. We're just simply asking the legislators or the governor to get this done.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
So maybe it's easier this way. Does anyone have an issue with either of those two asks that this resolution would confer to the legislature?
Well, let me just make an observation. As this process has moved forward, and we've had some discussions as a community with regard to the availability of voting as it relates to our budget, and then just generally, I come to find out Connecticut, as we all think we have a certain perspective on where a state like Connecticut really is, has fairly restrictive voting options relative to the rest of the country. So I think that's something that a lot of people didn't really appreciate or understand. This is interesting that this brings it to light. And do I think it's something the legislature should visit? Yeah, the answer is I do. And accordingly, I support both of these.
Thank you. Anyone else?
No, I don't really have a question. You know, I think by these resolutions, we're encouraging the legislator to give us some clarity going forward. I wish we could get back to old-fashioned voting, frankly, but you know, in these times, I guess we have to get organized, and I think the more specific the more specific organization of voting procedures, I think will benefit everybody in the long run, because I don't want to go into an election with any ambiguity and then come out of an election having a discussion about the validity of the election. So if anything, I can agree and accept that the legislators ought to dot all the I's and cross all the T's and get us organized and how we can most effectively move forward and allow the most people that could possibly vote to do it in a regulated, organized way. So I'm supporting of this.
Thank you. Any others? Any other comments?
Yeah,
Is there a motion? Sue?
just a comment that I am supportive of this, and I hate that this is seen as a Republican-Democrat thing. Absolutely hate that, and I'm in favor of expanded voting rights with reasonable safeguards in place against fraud, obviously.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, and so that's fair enough. Politics has a tendency to intrude from time to time. I mean, it's an occupational risk of our role here. But I only partly see it that way. I just think this is sort of a function of these rules and laws and practices, you know, were laid down in the 19th century probably, if not earlier. And the way people live now is just so different from the way people live. Forget the 19th century, before the highway was built, okay? And so things are just different, and approaching voting in a way that encourages access, I just think is a basic, I don't see that ultimately as particularly political. Although I do appreciate that it at time to time has become that, but I just think it's sensible. And thanks for bringing it up, Matt.
Good. Yeah. All right.
Gloria wants to say
something.
Gloria?
Trace, can you unmute Gloria?
Hi, can you hear me? Yes. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so as I understand, if the legislator comes in session this summer, it's just to approve November no excuse absentee ballot
Yep.
because it's in the Connecticut Constitution and the voters would have to put that up as it was 3 years ago or 2 years ago to have a no excuse absentee ballot. Is that how you understand it, Matt, that it's coming down for the summer session?
Yeah, the summer set, and then the second piece is they would be putting a question on the ballot in November, amending the Constitution to permanently allow that to happen.
Okay, this November?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, that's all.
Good.
Change is coming down the pike one way or the other, Gloria.
Yeah. Well,
It's gonna be an interesting year.
Gloria doesn't mind this too much because it's the town clerk that has to take care of the absentee.
So we count them.
So
So,
the resolution acknowledges that there would be substantial cost to the town, and we do ask for assistance from the state, but there's a pretty good likelihood that we're not going to get any. So we just need to be prepared for that. Just pointing that out.
all right. All right. I made the motion and it was seconded, I believe. Was it seconded, Trace?
I think I did.
Yes, thank you, Charlie. Call the question. Selectman Federici,
Aye.
Selectman Haverda,
Aye.
Selectwoman Renner,
Aye.
Selectwoman Ruoff,
Aye.
Selectman Hoy is also an aye. Thank you very much for that consideration. Item 8, discuss and take possible action on fair housing resolution and policy statement. This is an obligatory document that we need to sign to continue to participate in the community development block grant housing programs, the 2 programs that we're in. So just asking for your approval to send this along. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Call the question. Selectman Federici,
Aye.
Selectman Haverda,
Aye.
Selectwoman Renner,
Aye.
Selectwoman Ruoff,
Aye.
Selectman Hoy is also an aye. Motion carries. Item 9, consider and take possible action on noise control variance application from the Board of Education for a graduation event at the fairgrounds. Joel Reven, I see you on the line here. Are you making the pitch today?
Yes, sorry. Mr. Jarvis just distracted me for a moment, so we'll blame this on him. Yeah, so we're asking for a noise variance for the graduation ceremony. We expect people in their cars and to be following all our health and safety protocols, but cars have horns, and we know there's always a lot of hoopla around graduation, so we thought it was prudent to put in a request for the variance.
Wonderful. Joel, thank you very much for that summary. For those who aren't aware, there is a proposal out in the community. It was put out by the Board of Education. Mr. Macenti had sent it out, I believe it's a week and a half ago at this point, which was a call for a virtual graduation. As you can well imagine, it has generated a significant amount of interest in the community. I can tell you that the lion's share of my emails on non-COVID related activities has come from a very concerned number of parents and families about the graduation and making it, asking that they consider making it a little less restrictive than it is owing to the coronavirus. The Board of Education has, in fact, and administration has responded in kind that they are looking at some alternatives to what they had originally constructed for the ceremony. But nonetheless, I think it's still intended to take place at the fairgrounds. And I would wholeheartedly support this. So I'd make that motion.
I'll second the motion. Yeah, I don't want to micromanage it. Just trying to understand the logic of 8 to 11 in the evening for graduation. But
So-
I guess-
Joel?
Sure. The reason we're 8 to 11 is the plan as it stands right now is a 40-foot screen with an FM controlled. All the sound is through the FM stations of the cars, and they do not leave their cars. They watch the graduation virtually on the screen together as a class. Hear it in their cars, and then would drive away and receive a swag bag of things that have been donated by community members and businesses within the town, and their diploma cover.
Is the 8
That is being
PM,
reviewed,
is
Mr.
the
Hope
8
said,
PM required?
and may change, but the sound will not. That station will always.
Is
Charlie?
the 8 PM required because it has to be sort of dark?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Are the students, and the students are not going to walk? They're going to stay in their cars and they'll pick up the diploma from their car?
They never leave their car. We open the trunk, diploma cup. It's actually not the diploma because of the importance and confidentiality of those diplomas. We will give those to them at a different time. It's the diploma cover and a fun swag bag, as we're calling it.
So the
So it's gonna
graduates,
be- Go ahead, Susan.
I'm sorry, I was going to ask, so the cars are moving, so the car with the graduate in it is like a drive-through, or do they just stay stationary?
No, it's more like a drive-in movie. So we're gonna, with the town's help, we're gonna be putting it down parking spaces, white lines.
Mhm.
The guys at the fairgrounds have been great to help me kind of start to think about mapping that out. And the cars will stay stationary in their parking spot for the duration of the graduation. And then at the exits will be, I believe the superintendent's planning to be there, obviously Mr. Vicenti, the other administrators, and some of the senior advisors, and they will be putting it in their trunks and kind of waving goodbye. That's the plan right now.
So what's going to be on the screen? A parade of cars, or is that more for the speeches and that kind of stuff?
Exactly. We're trying, the idea initially, after discussions with everyone, was to keep it, all the traditions of the same speeches, and keep it as close to possible as the real graduation, but virtually. One idea was that originally they would have to just play it at home, and we'd all play it at the same time. The idea of the fairgrounds came out, and after discussions with the health department, et cetera, the idea to stay in the cars for safety, park 6 feet away, and spread out. But yes, all those speeches will take place. So Mr. Vicenti will have a speech. The kids have their greetings. We've shortened the administrative speeches, and we've lengthened the student speeches because we don't want to make this too long of them sitting in their cars either. But then yes, and then our video people, Mr. Steve who does our yearbook photos, and Mr. Ripa, who does our video in-house, have put together, they've spliced in pictures from throughout the year, et cetera, or try to make it as creative and interesting and terrific as possible.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea because doing it at home with Zoom or something like that, this way here, it's still an event. It's a different event, no question, but it's still an event that they're going to be able to remember and experience. So I like the idea. Do we have a motion on the table? Where are we with this?
I made the motion. I needed a second.
I second it.
I have a couple comments though, and questions really. First off, let me just sort of say, this is a good example of the folks at the Ag Society being really flexible with the use of the fairgrounds. It's helpful and appreciated. And I do like the idea of coming up with a creative solution to this, just some of these intractable problems that we have dealing with the virus. So, it's commendable that the school has figured out a way to try and address these conflicting needs. Okay, so that's great. One of the consistent complaints I've heard, however, is the number of cars that would be allowed. I mean, families come in all sizes and shapes, and I'm not sure I know what the current rules are with regard to a family that for one reason or another wouldn't be able to fit in one car. Is somebody really going to be enforcing, guests that want to be there but don't have a student in their car?
We did receive some feedback about those kind of families that may have been social distancing from each other, and there are allotments being made from what I understand. We are sticking with one car per graduate. Other than that, though, and with the nuclear family, I know it's also been asked if there's no Jeeps with their covers down, no convertibles with their covers down, those kind of things. But I know there have been some individual accommodations made for those families.
So you're saying if someone feels like they can't, for whatever reason, get everybody in one car, they can contact somebody? Who's that? To address that problem, that specific problem for them?
Exactly. Contact
So
Mr. Vicente or myself, and we will take care of it.
So,
Thanks. Thank you.
Do you think, I'm wondering how those of us who love to participate in this and just stand on the green and watch it every year, how can we join? Is there a chance that you might be live streaming it?
Yes, it's not really live streamed because it's actually recorded already. So yes, it's after. We want to make sure that the kids see it first on the fairgrounds. We don't want them to be texted or via social media. Hey, you looked great in your cap and gown.
Right.
So we'll start it just a couple of minutes after our ceremony.
Right.
But yes, it will be on a YouTube channel, and we'll be there not only for that day, but for any other day that people want to go back and look at it. So that
Great.
will be a
Okay.
nice
Thank you.
keepsake.
Good. Thanks.
Lou, did you have other questions?
No, I appreciate it. It's you're juggling a lot of conflicting tensions and an unenviable job. Well struck coming up with a compromise that seems to balance all those tensions.
I would just say that I have a graduating senior in my family from Simsbury, and I know people in North Haven, and I believe that those two districts are doing a very similar arrangement. So it sounds like it's been thought out, and maybe you've even discussed that, Joel, with other districts. I don't know, but it's very, very similar pattern I've heard from those two places.
Yes, we've been in close contact with other districts, certainly the two on either side of us, Brantford and Hand. We know their plans. Hasn't announced theirs yet. It will be different than ours, and we'll see what happens when that's announced, I believe, today.
Good. I think that's where the rub still is in the community. There are some folks who are doing it in a more lenient fashion than we're planning on doing it, including our neighbors to the east, where I believe they're actually going to walk across the stage. At this point, I don't know where, Joel, I'm not going to ask you to comment at this point, but I know that was one of the consistent asks on the numerous emails that I've received copies of to the administration. So that is part of the discussion, as I understand. But we are not committing that it is going to be anything like that. Right now, the plan we have in place is the plan we have in place.
And all we're looking at today anyway is a noise ordinance variations. Right. This is what goes forward. I'm heartily in favor of the noise ordinance request, relief.
Good. All right. Are we done with questions? Good. Call the question. Selectman Federici?
Aye.
Selectman Haverda?
Aye.
Selectwoman Renner?
Aye.
Selectwoman Ruoff?
Aye.
Selectman Hoy is also an aye. Joel, thank you very much for your explanation and all the work you're doing.
Thank you, guys. Stay safe.
You too.
Thank you.
Item 10, appointments and resignations. And Sue, just in the event that you didn't get a copy of it, I think you probably did, designating where the recommendations were coming from.
Yep, got it.
All right, you got it. And then I don't have to read that piece.
No.
10.1, act on a recommendation to reappoint Tim Sullivan to the Public Works Commission for a term to expire May 31st, 2024. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
A second?
Second.
Call the question. We're going to do these by voice vote.
Okay.
Just all in favor?
Aye.
10.2, act on a recommendation to reappoint Anthony DeLuca to the Public Works Commission for a term to expire May 31st, 2024. All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion first
I'll make a motion, sure.
and a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 10.3, act on a recommendation to reappoint Aaron Hirschman to the Board of Ethics for a new term to begin August 1st, 2020 and expire July 31st, 2024. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
10.4, act on a recommendation to reappoint Dennis Dossick to the Land Acquisition Commission for a new term to begin June 19th, 2020 and expire June 18th, 2024. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Call the question. All in favor? Aye.
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 Motion carries. 10.5, act on a recommendation to reappoint Al DiMarzio to the Marina Commission for a term to expire November 30th, 2023. Is there a motion?
So
So-
moved.
And second, one of those is a second.
Yeah.
Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
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 10.6, act on a recommendation to reappoint David Davison to the Marina Commission for a term to expire May 30th, 2024. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
And a second.
Second.
Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
10.7, act on a recommendation to reappoint Tracy Brent to the Economic Development Commission for a term to expire April 30th, 2024. Is there a motion?
So
I'll make
moved.
that. And a second. Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
10.8, act on a recommendation to appoint Michael Tyre to the Standing Building Committee for a term to expire June 17th, 2024. Is there a
This
motion?
alternate? So we're at a point where the Standing Building Committee now has an alternate?
Um,
Oh, wow.
The agenda says alternate.
yeah,
I mean, that's amazing.
it is. And,
Yeah.
and great thanks to Dave DeMayo for having really developed the talent and identified the players to get on the board. So
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So, yeah, can we say aye twice here?
yeah, call the question. All in favor? Aye, twice.
Aye.
All right. Item 11, committee reports. Sandy, anything new since?
No, we're having a meeting today of the Economic Development Plan Committee, just to update everybody, but after the meeting, maybe I may have more to share in 2 weeks.
Wonderful. Lou, anything on fees?
It's been difficult, needless to say, without everybody being together. I mean, we had a meeting scheduled right in mid-March, and that had to fall through. And until we get back together, we're gonna
Okay, so
really
what
go.
are we looking at? Health department and fire?
Well, fire, in a sense, is almost a third category. Health. I don't know that. We'll have to clock us
Circle
off.
back on. We'll circle back on that. That's fine. All right, correspondence. Anybody have anything? No. Old business. We have one other piece of business for new business, which is a request for the use of the green by Lisa Lee Salon to provide haircuts for men and little folks, with a portion of the proceeds going to a nonprofit. Trace, you had a little more familiarity with this than I did.
Yeah, Karen actually spoke to the woman, and basically that's what she's looking to do, cut haircuts on the green and donate some of the proceeds to restaurants and local.
Right. Got it.
So it's not, sorry.
I just had a question. She's going to donate some of the proceeds to local restaurants, but she's going to keep some of the proceeds too.
Right.
And does that fit in with other activities that we've had on the green? Because usually, I thought most of the activities are not-for-profit organizations that raise money, but this is a private business keeping some of the profits. I'm not necessarily against it. I'm just asking the question.
Well, Sandy, you're absolutely correct. The for-profit entities, the use of the green by for-profit entities is prohibited. So as currently constituted, this application is inconsistent with the use policies of the Guilford Green.
And I'm afraid that if we say yes to this, then we're kind of opening up a lot of, a precedent that I wouldn't blame other people for wanting to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, to your point, Sandy, if you read her note at the end, I mean, she says it very clearly so that we can make a little money and give part of our proceeds.
Right.
I mean, it's interesting. It is different, but these are different times.
That shop, I think, was literally scheduled to open like the third week in March. So they just ran into a terrible calendar.
Yeah. Well, they can open up.
Doesn't change the fact of Sandy's observation.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so this is just one day she alone is going to set up on the green and do this?
Apparently.
Well, I mean, it's,
Does the Green Committee know about this?
no,
They didn't even forward it to the Green Committee because it's in clear violation of the use of the policy.
right. It's black and white
Yep.
to me. Its name of organization needs to be a nonprofit organization.
Yep.
So they could go to the organization that they were hoping to benefit and have that organization submit an application and
Okay.
do it that way.
Or have it get done in somebody's yard, a private business.
Or what it is? Yeah, I mean there are other areas for this to take place. I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're not gonna act on this because it's in violation.
Is someone going to have a conversation with her to sort of explain?
Yes, we will circle back, and that the Board of Selectmen.
And maybe Brian could talk to her from economic development perspective and work with. I mean, I don't know where her salon is located or anything, but okay.
Good.
Needs further
Charlie, it's across the parking lot from the coffee shop in the Quonset hut. In the same building as H. Pierce.
Oh, okay.
Well, then they could have it on their front lawn then. I mean, that answers the whole question. You're talking.
There might be some health department concerns with cutting hair out in open space like that.
Yeah, so look for that variance. Bang that. We don't have to solve their problems. The referral to economic development's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, your comment about her location being right on the green. I mean, do it on her. Okay, yes. Too much time. Next.
Well, I mean, I appreciate the situation they're calling attention to also. It's helping out the local small businesses. It's certainly all in favor of that, just not this way.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other new business? All right, we are going to have a executive session as item number 16. So we'll conduct public forum at this point. Is there anyone wishing to address the board in public forum? Jeff, you're on.
Thank you. I honestly was a little bit confused by that whole discussion, but what I do know is that, parties to the contract are free to modify the terms of the contract anytime by mutual agreement. That was why the union submitted that letter. So if the board had just agreed to also waive the 90-day timeline, we would have been in effect in postponement, because there would not have been wouldn't have been an urgency that we have to do something yes or no within 90 days. So it seemed, I guess I thought that would have been the easiest way to move past that whole issue. Very disappointed that the board opted to just vote no instead of taking that alternative step. But with that said, I would hope that the board will be open to looking at this in early 2021. I mean, I heard that said, so I will probably be the one to open that discussion early next year. And, you know, I just appreciate everybody's time. And, you know, 12 years is a long time. And as you said, and there are a lot of people, as was pointed out, that could really use a COLA of some kind to help, you know, help them survive. So again, thanks so much for everything. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff. All right. Is there a motion to go into executive session to consider an act on a successor agreement between the town of Guilford and the Guilford Employees Association for July 1, 2020 to June 30th, 2021? And then, as I said, executive session will be required, and I'm inviting Mitch Goldblatt and Chris Hodgson into executive session. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Selectman Federici,
Aye.
Selectman Haverda,
Aye.
Selectwoman Renner,
Aye.
Selectwoman Ruoff.
Aye.
All right, Trace, you want to stop the recording, and I'll start it when we come back out.
Sure.
Okay, is there a motion to come out of executive session?
So
So-
moved.
And a second?
Second.
There you go. Call the question, Selectman Federici,
Aye.
Selectman Haverda,
Aye.
Selectwoman Renner,
Aye.
Selectwoman Ruoff.
Aye.
Selectman Hoy is also an aye. That motion carries. We've had some discussions under executive session, but are now prepared to entertain a motion about the successor agreement between the town of Guilford and the Guilford Employees Association for July 1, 2020 to June 30th, 2021. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Any further discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Selectman Federici,
Aye.
Selectman Haverda,
Aye.
Selectwoman Renner,
Aye.
Selectwoman Ruoff.
Aye.
Selectman Hoy is also an aye. Mitch, thank you very much for your work on this.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Great, and I'll sign it today if we need to,
Yep.
right?
And maybe, and I think the union team too, right, in terms of their work with you, Mitch?
Yeah, I would say, you know, and publicly I could say that the leadership of the Guilford Employee Association has been very cooperative in working this out and working it out very quickly. We did have a couple of small issues, and we worked them out, and they're the result of what you just voted on.
Good. All right, before I entertain a motion to adjourn, I want to say I'm looking forward to the time when we can all be in the same room together. As much fun as this Zoom stuff is, I miss the camaraderie and us being together.
Yeah.
So at some point, if we want to consider actually meeting in, because we now have meetings over, up to 10 people in a room now, right? And we could potentially do it at one of the community center larger rooms if people are interested in doing that. Our challenge there is I think we'll still need to put it up on Zoom because we may not be able to afford enough of the public to attend. But let's start to contemplate the time when we can all do this together again.
I think that would be great. I mean, I would be all for it if we can do it.
Especially because I forget what Charles looks like.
I'm doing you all a favor. I agree with Matt about, wanting to move forward. I'm thinking July though. Let's get through this month and there's enough things happening and let's see how phase one really turns out. So far so good, but
Yeah, I agree.
So may I just ask this question? Right now, public meetings are 10 people or fewer. Is that correct?
No,
Things, I mean.
no.
As of today, in gatherings indoors are 10 or less. That was just changed from the 5. And actually, that was a distinction that he had not made before. It was always inside. It was any social gatherings had to be limited to 5 only. The distinction he made the other day is indoors it's 10, outdoors it's now 25.
Okay,
And places of worship, outdoors can do 150, I think, right? Interestingly enough, some of the emails I've gotten, and I can't tell you how many, literally, I bet I've gotten a couple hundred emails on this issue. So, you know, the Board of Ed is getting crushed on this thing. People are now saying that constitutes a service. The graduation may constitute a service, so they could do 2, they would like to do 2 150-person maximum or graduates ceremonies and have folks walk across the stage. So it's a significant challenge for the Board of Ed right now and the administration right now. So
I like the plan that they proposed today, though. It still makes it an event that the kids could develop some memories about.
agreed, as opposed to nothing at all. You're right. So, but more to come on that.
Okay.
Well, listen, thank you all. And with that,
You know,
I'll-
Matt, before we go off,
Yeah.
you know, new business, I don't know what you want to call it. I mean, I know that we're local and our town is like extremely blessed. And there was some comments that the deputy chief mentioned that, you know, there were some protests in the green and how well that went. But we are in difficult and challenging times. And there can be multiple, I just have this observation, there can be multiple truths at once. And there can be an enormous amount of tremendously dedicated, committed police officers doing a tremendous job. But there can also at the same time be serious injustice that has gone on in many ways, in many places, that can cause that level of grief and anger. And it is upsetting to me. And I do really feel we are lucky in this town, and sometimes you make your own luck. And again, no reflection on police officers generally, because it's a difficult job, and I do believe the vast majority are trying absolutely their best to do a great job.
Agreed.
But that still doesn't mean that there's not a lot of pain out there that requires some community soul searching across the country.
Agreed.
So anyway, today of all days, I felt it needed mentioning.
Yep. And just so you know, that Butch had alerted me to the fact that they had gotten wind on social media that there was going to be a gathering on the green, and they committed to making sure they had a presence there, just because of what is going on around the country. As you said, Lou, we are somewhat different than a lot of other places. However, that doesn't mean we're immune from potential problems related. So I have the utmost confidence that in our police department, in terms of their approaching gatherings like that in a non-confrontational, non-threatening manner. So, all right, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Yep.
Second.
Voice vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you all. Have a great day.
Hey, Matt,
Yeah, Charlie.
have you heard anything about the Little Folks Fair? Is that canceled?
That would have to be canceled. Just
I would think so, but it's the only thing. I mean, I was going to ask about that question in Lobster Fest at both
Lobster
of them.
Fest is done, Charlie.
It is canceled. Okay.
Yeah.
But we don't know about Little Folks Fair at this point. You just assume it.
But before we get away from Rotaries for 5 seconds,